Hi, welcome to lecture 12. This is going to get deep, so I hope you're going to be able to follow this. It's going to be probably the deepest of my lectures so far, more esoteric than what I've actually touched on so far, and it's going to be on a book which I've written called the Caduceus. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm not going to say a lot about this book. I'm going to introduce you some of the ideas that are in it, but it's going to be sort of an introduction. This book is also connected to a book which I don't have a copy of at the moment, on the $1 bill. You'll probably find a lot of stuff on the $1 bill on YouTube. I approach it at a different angle, and you'll probably see that what I've got on it is very different to what you'll see elsewhere. So we're going to look at the Caduceus. The Caduceus, well, let's bring the picture back up again. This is a picture of a Caduceus. It's a pole with two serpents going up. The heads are at the top here, and at the top is so I'm just getting over the flu now, so I'm coughing a bit. Two wings of an eagle and a sort of orb at the very top. And there's different forms you see this as. There's also an icon called the Asclepius. I've got a picture of an Asclepius here. Asclepius is one rod with a serpent, one serpent going up a rod, and you'll find this on, for example, this is actually called the Star of Life. It's a logo used on Hatzalah, which is a Jewish ambulance brigade in London, and it's also got the Asclepius on it. And the Asclepius goes back a long way. Now, it's actually connected to the serpent on the tree of knowledge, but it goes back more clearly to the time when the children of Israel were wandering through the wilderness, and they were complaining to Moses and Aaron about the food that they had, the manna, and God sends them fiery serpents that bite them and they start to die, and then they repent and they go to Moses and Aaron and say, we've sinned against you, we've sinned against God. And God tells Moses to take a pole, which is called a nace in Hebrew, and to put a copper serpent on that nace, and then if people look up at it, they will live. Later on, that serpent started to be worshipped. That sort of Asclepius was worshipped by the Israelis, and the king Hezekiah, he broke it up and destroyed it because it was against the Jewish religion, it was against Torah to worship idols, and the rabbis praised Hezekiah for breaking that rod or healing wand which Moses had made, because they'd lost the essence of what it was all about. We're not going to go into that story too much, but that is the connection. That's the biblical connection to the Asclepius. The Caduceus has two serpents going up, and this is something which we'll look at also as we go along, why there are two serpents, what the serpent represents. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to start this off actually by talking about a specific individual called Rabbi Schneerson, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. I'm just going to show you some interesting things about his name and how he's connected to the Caduceus, which might be a little bit far-fetched for some of you. But this is how it came about. What it was that I was dabbling around in the very early days when I was looking into English Gematria, and I was looking at the name Osama bin Laden. And Osama bin Laden, this goes back to the very night I woke up at about 3 in the morning, and my wife had been to a lecture by Uri Geller on 9/11. 9/11 was in September. This was about December time, a few months later, and he had told her all about the significance of number 11, the two towers, that they were in the shape of a number 11, the number of people on the different flights had 11 as a factor, or if you add the digits together, like flight 65, 6 and 5 was 11. I think there was a flight 77, which of course is 7 times 11. There was 11 letters in Afghanistan, 11 letters in the Pentagon, which was hit. So interesting connections with number 11. But I was looking at in Gematria terms, and I looked at the name of Osama bin Laden. I woke up that night with a melody going around in my head from a festival that we had recently had called Sukkot, and that melody was going around in my head about the end of days. It was about the coming of the Messiah. So I woke up, couldn't get this melody out of my head, and thought I'd have a game with some names. So I was using Osama bin Laden, and I was taking the letters A is 1 to Z is 26, the placement values. And I got Osama bin Laden. Osama was 49, my dyslexia comes in. Bin is 25, and Laden is 36. And if you notice, these are square numbers. That's 7 squared, 5 squared, and 6 squared. So I thought about that, and I thought that's very strange, because these are 3 consecutive squares: 5 squares, 6 squares, 7 squared, and that's pretty special for somebody's name, a powerful name in a way. So if you add these together, though, you'll get 110. And I thought, well, I'll try a few other numbers and see of this pattern, and see if they're also the sum of 3 consecutive squares. So, for example, 220, 330, are those numbers the sums of 3 consecutive squares? And the answer is no. But I got to 770, and I got 3 consecutive squares. You're asking yourself, what is this got to do with Caduceus? You'll see soon. So I got to 177, and that equaled 15 squared plus 16 squared plus 17 squared. 3 consecutive squares. 880, 990, no. The only 2 numbers that are the sums of 3 consecutive squares are 110 and 770. That's 5 squared plus 6 squared plus 7 squared. And you'll see that the digits 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7 are the same. I thought that was just interesting. But then I thought, well, let's have a look at this. 770 is 7 times 110. And that is 7 times 5 squared plus 6 squared plus 7 squared. Now, those know maths, you can multiply your brackets out, and you'll get 7 times 5 squared plus 7 times 6 squared plus 7 times 7 squared, which is 7 cubed. 7 times 7 times 7. Which is, 7 times 5 squared is 175, because that's 7 times 25. 7 times 6 squared is 7 times 36, which is 252. And 7 cubed, 7 times 7 times 7 is 343. So, and that number there, I knew the significance of. And that is because this number 770 is a number which I know a lot about, because the Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who I mentioned before, his headquarters is at 770 Eastern Parkway, Crown Heights, New York, Brooklyn, New York. And they call that 770. He is the Rebbe of the 7th Rebbe of a Hasidic group called Lubavitchers, or Chabad. In fact, I've got a picture of him here. I've got him on the wall. This is a picture of Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the 7th Lubavitcher Rebbe, who passed away about 22-3 years ago. I'm not remember exactly when, but he passed away actually the day before my youngest son was born. And his headquarters is 770 or 770 Eastern Parkway. And 770, if you read it as 770, equals 175. So that is the connection between 770 and that number. But 770 equals the whole lot. But these two numbers here, let's bring a little bit of colour into it, 252 and 343, also started making bells going in my head, because these are part of a series of numbers. Let's have a look at what this series is. The series is this. I'm going to start at the top. 707, 616, 525, 434, 343, 252, and then I'm going to have to rub off the rest. 161 and 070. Okay, so you can see that the outer numbers go down from 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to the bottom, and the inner level goes up to 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when I looked at that, I think that looks something like a caduceus. I'm sorry to be so outlandish, but it does. It goes like this: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you've got it going this way as well. So, okay, that was sort of an idea at that time. A zigzag, two serpents going up, sort of a wavelength once, twice, sort of 2.5 times, going up one side and going up the other side. So I thought, that's interesting. And then later on, when I discovered the large values, I looked at the name Menachem Mendel Schneerson. I have Menachem, using the large values, where M is 13 and 13 is 99, E is 5 and 5 is 42, I got 525. That's the large value. Mendel, I got 434. And Schneerson, I got 707. You can check those out yourself. This is just the large values. And those numbers occur here. 707 is Schneerson, 525 is Menachem, and 434 is Mendel. We've had this number before when we did the tefillin, the knot of the tefillin. We show how this number was reflected with those square numbers of 11 squared, 12 squared, and 13 squared. That's what that is. That's 11 squared plus 12 squared plus 13 squared. Also a series of 3 consecutive squares. So now I had these two numbers here, 343 and 252, which is part of the 770 pattern that we had before. 3, 4, 3, these two here, and we had the connection with these numbers here, connecting to Menachem Mendel. So, and that doesn't end there. Let's go back to 770. We had 770 equaling 15 squared plus 16 squared plus 17 squared. If I work these out as words, in other words, I write out 15 squared, we've done this before, and I work out what that is, because 15 is 65 and squared is 85, I get 150. And I do for 16 squared, 16 is 96 and squared is 85. That gives you 181. And I got 17 squared. I will now get 17 is 109, and again 85 is 194. Now add those together, I get 4 and 1 and 0 is 5. I get 8 and 5 is 13, plus 9 is 22. And I get 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. In other words, if I work it out, 15 squared plus 16 squared plus 17 squared, I get 525, which is Menachem. So I have a connection between 770 and Menachem. There is another connection between Menachem and 770. I'm going to take this off. The reason why I'm going through this is because this comes into quite a few of my books, not just the Caduceus, and therefore it's quite important in the patterns that I show. If we take Menachem's name in Hebrew, it's spelled Mem, Nun, Chet, and the final Mem. Okay, Menachem. So if we use the large values, I've not done this before, I don't think I have, the large values with Menachem, Mem is the 13th letter, and again 13 is 99. Nun is the 14th letter, and 14 is 104. See, this is where I bring English and Hebrew together, I merge them together. And this is so that we can discuss later. I've showed you the word Daniel, where Daniel contains the word lion den, hidden in the name. The English is in the Hebrew going back thousands of years ago. Chet is the 8th letter, and 8 is 49. And the final mem can take two values, we've seen. It can take 13 as the normal mem, or it can take, when it's put at the end of the alphabet, it can take 24, can equal 24. That's in the placement values, okay? And that's what we use to get the large values. So when it's the same, it's 13, it's just 99. If I add those together, I will get 351. If I use the final mem as if it was at the end of the letters, so now there's 24. 24 is same as x, is 167. And these stay the same. But if I add these together now, I'll get, just to remind myself because I think I've forgotten, 99 is 18, 22, 29. 6 and 4 is 10, 19, 21. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I get 419. Add those together, I get 770. In other words, when I add together the large value and what I call the alternative large value, and I add them both together, I get 770. So we can see the connection between 770 and Menachem in English, and we can see a connection between 770 and Menachem in Hebrew. So we're now going to look at the Caduceus, and let's just go back to my number Caduceus, that's what I call it. Starting with 707 at the top. We had 707, 616, 525, 434, 343, 252, 161 and 070. Just look at this number here, 70. If I write 70, work out what it is as a placement value, 70 equals 110. So, the other way, 110. But if you look at 70 as time, and I do this with these numbers and other things as well, what I call a time transformation, 070, we'll put two dots there, you can't have more than 60 minutes in an hour, so that will be 1 hour and 10 minutes. So there's a connection between this number and this as well. Now, remember I told you the story of Moses and the staff with the serpent going up. The staff was called a nace. God tells them to put a brazen serpent on a nace, which is normally translated as a banner, or in this case a pole, and it also means a miracle. But the word nace in Hebrew is nun samach, and nun is 50 for its normal value, and samach is 60. equaling 110, which is again connected to the beginning of this Caduceus. So let's look at the word Caduceus. It's spelled like this. C-A-D-U, Caduceus. Okay, I'm sure I got that right. Now Caduceus has a large value of 616. That's the large value. It has a normal inner value, the NIV value, of 616. So it has 616 twice, both the large value and the normal inner value, and that is our 616. And I look at that number as representative of the Caduceus as a whole, because I look at the 6 as representing a serpent. It's like a curled serpent. And the 1 representing the pole, the line. And this is what I connect also in the $1 bill. I talk about, let me just rub this off, the word dollar. First of all, the dollar sign is basically, it's often put one line, sometimes you see with 2 lines. Either way, it is a stick with a serpent on it, Asclepius. But if you look at the word dollar, you will see that D is the 4th letter and O is the 15th letter, and that makes 19. And the 19th letter is an S, which is a serpent. And over here we have 1A, and 18 is the 18th letter, which makes 19, which again is an S. And the 2 L's is the pole in the middle, with the 2 serpents going up either side of the Caduceus. So I'm just going to write down the value of the normal value for Caduceus, because the normal value of Caduceus is actually 716. That's the NV. The placement value is 77. 770, 77, that's the placement value. The reason why this number is significant is for the following reason. The Hebrew word for serpent is nachash. I'll be writing this in script. Let's write it in block letters. Nun, chet, shin. Right? That's nachash. That's the word used in the story of the Garden of Eden, where the nachash tempts Eve. The word serpent equals 97. Tempter equals 97, because the serpent was the tempter. So the Hebrew word is nachash. And the Hebrew word nachash has got a gematria, normal values again, 300, 8 and 50. This is a known gematria amongst a lot of Jewish people. It's 358. And that is the same as Mashiach. Mashiach is the Messiah in Hebrew. Mashiach is also 358. Now when you've got 2 of these, so you've got 2 serpents going up, you've got 358 and 358, and that gives you 16, 11, 7. So that's the normal values, and that gives us the normal value of Caduceus. So you can see how the Caduceus is connected to 2 serpents, nachash, nachash. If we now add on to that the nace, so this is the nachash, 2 of those, and we're going to add on nace, which we had before, which was 110, we get 826. Okay, that's also normal value, being consistent. So we've got the nace, we've got the nachash and the nachash, we've got 2 now, not just the one which Moses put on him. The reason why Moses didn't need to have a second serpent is because he's holding the staff, and he is a serpent. He is a Mashiach. So here we've got two serpents represented. We've got 826. If I take these four numbers, what we call the base of the number Caduceus, I've now got, above this is Menachem Mendel Schneerson and Caduceus. Below this is the four numbers which sort of just don't seem to have a lot of relationship. But if you add these together, you will get 826, which is Nachash, Nachash, Nes. So this part is representing now the Caduceus again. So so it's called a brazen serpent, and I'm going to just write down this sort of formula, which is Nachash, Nachash, and Nes. 358, 358, 110. We had as 826. If I do the same for the large values, well, actually I'm going to do the same at the moment for the normal inner values. So that's the normal values. The NIV values give me 163, 163. No, it doesn't. So, Nes is 163. Nachash is 245. I've got it the opposite way here. 245. That will give me 653. And then I've got the placement value is 43, 43, and 29. That gives me 115. If I add these two together, I get 768. And if I take the words brazen serpent, which is what he made, brazen serpent, and I work out the normal value, I get 768. That's the normal value. A moment. Okay. If I take the Hebrew when Hezekiah destroys this brazen serpent, it's called an interesting name. It's called Nehushtan. Nehushtan in Hebrew. It's spelled Nehushtan in English, and I'll just write that word up over here. Nehushtan comes with Nachash and Nechoshet, which means also brazen. Has a placement value of 110, like what we had down here. That's the placement value, and it has a large value of 716. That's the large value, and that equals the Caduceus. The normal value of Caduceus is 716, but that's the large value of Nehushtan. Added together again gives me 826, because 716 was twice Nachash. Okay. Okay, so we've got these interesting connections between. So this number here, I was in the middle of doing this one here. This is brazen serpent, and there was one more. If I do the large values of these, the LV, see if I can fit it in here. The LV values are 294, 294, and 169. It's 13 squared. And I add those together, I will get 757. And 757, so we've seen the significance of that. That's this section. We've seen the significance of this to be connected to the brazen serpent. And 775, if you take Menachem, and you work out the normal value, that's 40, M is 40, E is 5, N is 50, you'll get 152 NV value. Mendel is, that's 50 and another 50, 134. That's normal value. And Schneerson is 471. And if I add those together, I'll get 757. So he's connected to that number. And the Brazen Serpent is connected to those two numbers. In fact, Menachem Mendel is connected to that as well, because Menachem Mendel in the placement value is 62, and Mendel is 53, is 115. So he's connected to that number as well over there. And that is connected to, we've seen the base, is connected to Nehushtan. So it sort of all comes together, and you'll be wondering, well, why is Menachem Mendel Schneerson connected to this this Caduceus. He had the power of healing. He healed amazing stories are told about his healing both people that came to see him and also even long distance healing. And the Caduceus has the symbol of being a healing rod or healing wand, and therefore anybody that has the power of healing would have the aspect of this Caduceus connected to him. And I explain in this book what the Caduceus represents. It represents actually the raising up of the Kundalini, which is the serpent at the base of the spine. It's called the Kundalini. It's a power, it's an energy, and it's once a person knows how to raise the Kundalini, he will have the powers of telepathy, the powers of healing. There's a story of a young man who goes to the Bavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, and he knows that the Rebbe, who the Chassidim call him in a dear way, rather than Rabbi, they say Rebbe, my teacher, and they say and they know that he sort of looks at your forehead and not at your eyes. So he went in with his hat over his forehead, and the Rebbe said to him, "You think I can't see through your hat?" So he was very well known for his telepathic abilities. There's the story of another man who went to see him, and he wrote down a number of his questions on a piece of paper, and it only took sort of half of the sheet. He folded it, tore it up into two pieces, and put one into one pocket, one to the other pocket, inside pocket of his jacket. And when he goes to the inside of the Rebbe's office and he sits down, he gives the Rebbe one of the pieces of paper, but he gave him the wrong piece. He gave him the blank one. And the Rebbe was able to tell him the answers to all his questions. And it was only on the way home that he took out the other piece of paper, because the Rebbe kept the first piece, but he gave him, threw it away in the bin. And he took out the other piece, and it had the questions on it. So he realized that the piece that he gave to the Rebbe was the piece that was blank. And the Rebbe still knew his questions. So, and that, I believe, comes through the power of being able to raise the Kundalini. And this is what the Caduceus is all about, all the Asclepius. And this book goes into more what the eagle wings represent. Rather esoteric. A little bit, perhaps not what most people are used to seeing. So, anybody wants to read this book, get in touch with me. I think it's on Amazon. And I think that's all we're going to say for the moment on the Nehushtan and the Caduceus. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that one. We'll talk a little bit more maybe on the $1 bill next time. Bye bye.